Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen. I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey and a lot of other things. And Tom, we're going to start on the social page this morning because there's hockey news involving one of your buddies, a former teammate and guy that's been on your other podcast many times, and that's Ron Duguay. Yesterday morning, I opened up my MSN login, and the number one news story is Ron Duguay, the former NHL player, now dating Sarah Palin, the former vice presidential candidate. So I'm sure you must have got a chuckle out of that.
Yeah, well, probably about a month ago, he sent a video to me. He texted a video, and he was in a private jet with Sarah Palin and some other people. He says, "Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody."
Yeah.
Then 2 weeks later, he's sitting in page 6. He's been sitting in a restaurant in downtown Manhattan. So it was really secret.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know, younger people perhaps, this is nothing new for Ron Duguay, who has had a string of celebrity dating when he was young. I remember Mick Jagger's ex-wife. I remember
Pierre Elliott Trudeau's wife.
Yeah, Cheryl Teagues, I think, was Patty LaPone. Then of course, he married a supermodel, Kim Alexis, and was married for a very long time.
His first wife he had was even more beautiful. She was a gorgeous girl.
Who was that? Do you remember?
Yeah, her name is Robin. She was not a model or anything like that.
She was a hairdresser, right?
Is that who was? Yes.
Yeah. I remember her for sure.
He's funny. He is something else.
Yeah. So pretty big news. Like, he was a very good hockey player, but I think he was on the social pages as much as he was in the sports section.
Yeah. So. I think the Rangers at that time, Sonny Werblin was running Madison Square Garden, and apparently, what I'm told, he really wanted that too. He wanted Ron in page 6, like he really encouraged him to do that stuff. So I'll never forget. I've told the story so many times. One of the first games I played with the Rangers, I was on the bench and I started smelling coconuts, and Ron had the long curly hair and everything, and he put conditioner in it, so he started to sweat. I guess the smell of coconuts was coming out. So I thought I was on the beach.
That's pretty funny. Pretty funny. Yeah, I remember, I was a young reporter and working for the Port Huron Times-Herald, and Duguay was traded to the Red Wings. Played very well for the Red Wings. I think he had a 30-goal season, a 35-goal season. But, the big story that the guys would talk about in the dressing room is just how stunning he was and how much effort he put in his appearance. His hair was always perfect, and he had a perm back then. I mean, it was the 80s, so a lot of guys did, but there was a lot of joking around about that most guys could get out of the dressing room in 5 to 7 minutes, and it took Ron a lot longer to get organized. So
There's something because we at the time then with the Rangers, so Ron Greschner was married to Carol Alt at the time. Dukes had all his different girls, so it was quite the show. Eating Manhattan was certainly something,
Yeah, that's so that you had 2 players dating or married to supermodels, essentially.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That's pretty amazing.
And then I went to LA, and then Wayne Gretzky's there with his I guess model actress wife. What's the name? I can't know.
Wayne Gretzky you're talking about?
Yeah,
Janet Jones. Janet Jones.
Yeah, that's awful. I can remember.
Yeah.
She was a total sweetheart too, but she had we had a charity event one night, and we had I can't remember what it was, but James Woods, the actor James Woods, was there, and apparently he had a movie that was coming out. So Janet knew this, and they were all friendly. So we're all sitting in one area, and James Woods comes walking over, and Janet goes, "Oh, James, Wayne and I went to go to your movie the other night, but the line was too long. We couldn't get in." And she's trying to be nice to show how popular this movie was. And James goes, "Janet, the movie's not out yet." So she was just bullshitting. She was saying that to him to make her feel good. And the movie was
wow.
Yeah. But you know what, though? It was just, she was such a nice person, really, and everybody respected Wayne so much. So you just kind of chuckled about it. It wasn't a big deal, but
Yeah. Yeah, I told this story to a friend of mine that Duguay was dating Palin that I was writing about. And he goes, "Geez, I hope he's a Republican." And I didn't have the heart to break to him that most hockey players are Republican. So,
Yeah.
they don't. This is a very conservative league,
Yeah.
to say the league. If you're looking for a Democrat athlete, you got to go to the NFL or the
Yep.
NBA.
Right.
I think probably Major League Baseball is a little probably more conservative as well, but there are certainly some Democrats in Major
Yep.
League Baseball, but most of the Democrats are in the NFL or the and the NBA, to be sure. So, but yeah, no, it was and it's so. I mean, that's really kind of sad when you think about it. That in order for the NHL to get like a top story status, like one of our athletes has to date Sarah Palin. Like we can't get there for our Stanley Cup final or anything like that. We've got to have,
Right.
and it really hits home. Like, you and I both watched the Super Bowl yesterday, and that is such a huge event compared to our Stanley Cup when,
Wow.
that's the thing. Like, from when I started covering the NHL almost 40 years ago to now, like it's come a long way. Like it's a much bigger sport. The footprint has expanded, but it's still not anywhere close to the NFL or even the NBA. When I was writing for USA Today, when we were such a prominent national paper, NHL stories just simply can't get it doesn't have the reach that an NBA story has. And, you write about LeBron or Steph Curry or one of those people, you just get such a huge readership. And, you get a little bit of a bump if you write about Sidney Crosby, but not nearly you could get several 100,000 readers if you write about LeBron, and you don't get anywhere near that if you write about Sid or
that's a good point with Sid, right? He's just typical of an NHL player. He's boring, right? He's a fantastic athlete, dedicated, great guy.
Yeah.
There's no news, right?
Yeah, but it's just, and it just goes beyond that. What every time LeBron opens his mouth, it's news. Whatever he says, no matter how he feels about something, people are interested in it. I mean, even Kobe, the late Kobe Bryant was the same way. Whatever Kobe had to say was, everybody considered kind of newsworthy. And it's just.
But by the way, I almost forgot. I mean, I haven't been able to sleep since you reprimanded me about boiling my ribs.
Yeah,
just a serious tongue lashing about boiling my ribs. So,
yeah.
So I had the ribs for Sunday. So I went to Costco, get the 3-packs. There's 3 racks of ribs. I boiled one, put one in the air fryer, and did the other in the oven. Really that low temperature, 220. So I had to rally the troops and fans around and realized that. And some people are saying, yes, you can boil your ribs, Tom. Don't listen to Kevin. It's basically what people said. So
yeah, well, I warned you right out front that even though I know that my wife watches a lot of cooking shows, so I learn by osmosis. But I'm not a cook, and I don't pretend to be. I don't play one on television. I don't really know anything about it. But I do know the people that I know that know a lot about ribs. Like that is just a horrible thing. Like they just don't. They just look down upon it. That if you boil the ribs. Now, I don't know. For all I know, the best rib places that I go to, that I have been to, maybe they're boiling their ribs too and just not telling anybody.
Yeah, I think you're right though. Every cooking show I've seen, they don't boil them. It's that really.
Well, the reason why I brought it up is not so much that's how they cook them, but I know they make fun of people who do, boil them. So
that's not right.
Yeah, no, it isn't. But I'm just telling you, that's what you hear. But my son-in-law is, like I said, really is an excellent rib cooker, and he wouldn't be caught dead boiling his ribs. Yeah, he just and it takes all day, because the reason why, like my grandmother used to boil them, but she was trying to cook them fast. That was the thing back then. You were always trying to get them ready for people to come over. But when my son-in-law cooks them, it's like the Thanksgiving turkey. He gets up early and he gets his ribs started, and and they cook all day, and
Now, does he put the sauce? Does he wait to put any sauce on until after they're cooked? Does he do?
He
that?
doesn't. He's a rubber. They rub them. The real big. He puts a big rub on them, but he always serves them with sauce as well. That he makes. It's all the.
Oh, good.
The hand sauce. So, but his ribs are superb. So,
very good. Does he got like pork ribs? Always pork ribs, or what does he use?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, I for the most part, I think most people don't boil them, but I'm sure there are people who do.
Yeah.
So
I made I branched out a little bit, so I made my chicken wings, cooked those up, had a little sauce made up for those. I also put a little chickpea flour in my sauce, with almost a little bit of more of a creamier sauce on it this time, and then put it back in the air fryer. So it's good, turned out well.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm in South Carolina now. I came down. My son-in-law runs the theater program down here in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and they have like 6 plays and musicals a year, and he directs 2 of them themselves, and then he brings in guest directors for the other 4. So these are one of his plays was this weekend, so we here for that. But my daughter speaks vegetarianism with my wife, and they have spent these last couple of days talking about recipes. And yesterday for the Super Bowl, my wife made some some vegan recipes and stuff, and it's really kind of interesting. I mean, we've had some vegan stuff that's actually quite good. So but I've learned some things. Somehow you can make vegan cheese out of nuts. Which
really?
Is just kind of nutty, but
that's kind of nutty. That's nutty.
Yeah. Speaking of that, let's get going to talk a little bit about hockey. I wanted to talk a little bit about we're starting the second half, Tom, and the trade deadline is marching. It's March 21st, so we've got we're approaching a month away, and I really feel it's now starting to heat up. And we're starting to, kind of hear like Giroux. I saw it reported by Sam Kachidi that the Colorado Scouts have been looking at the prospects, the Bruins have been looking at the Colorado prospects to see, who they might give up for Giroux. Can you imagine a team if they had to Claude Giroux? Like wow, Giroux's had a really, despite the fact that the Flyers have been played poorly this year, Giroux's had a pretty good year.
Yeah, and I don't think he did the last couple of years, but I do think he's playing better now. Yeah, but again, he's got that no move clause, right? So he can make the determination whether he wants to go.
Yeah, but other than Matt Sundin, do you remember another player who didn't go and try to win a cup late?
Good point. Yeah.
Ray Bourque held out 1 year, but then he wanted to go try to win one, so he left Boston. So
yeah,
but
I spoke to a well-placed source with the Rangers. I can't obviously name who it is, but you are more correct than I am. I think they're going to be doing a lot more than I anticipated.
Yeah, no, I know from talking to general managers that they've been real active. Right. Just looking at options and. I think the mandate that I don't know whether he was given this mandate, but I think he feels it. And I'm speaking about Chris Drury, is to make something happen.
Yeah.
This season they went out in the off season, they got harder to play against, and now
especially as good as they are right now, they're at the 10 team right now. So I think the feeling, what I heard was that the feeling is they owe it to the players, to the core group of players, to give them more to try to win right now too. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and I know you don't buy that, but I do. Yeah. I think that is important to do.
Well, again, I guess it's what it is, right? It's I don't know. Sometimes it should be just those third or fourth line guys. If you think you've got a good top 6, then don't mess with that. I don't know. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
And I think they're really happy with their top 4 defensemen, but it's fifth and sixth defensemen are looking to change too. But
Well, I ran your theory about by a general manager, just the idea of, that I said, look, I do a podcast with Tom Laidlaw, and he just said that as much as, we always talk about, you want to, like GMs say, you want to give your team help because you feel you owe it to them. He says, it can be disruptive because usually you're taking the spot of people that they all like. And, his comment was, well, it depends who it is. Like he said, he didn't use this as an example, and I won't use the example he gave me because it will identify the team. But, we were talking about Ray Bourque. If you were moving out a player of the magnitude of Ray Bourque because you thought he was too old and couldn't play anymore, that might cause a problem. But,
definitely.
If you're just doing it to a young player, he said most players want to win more than they're, want to worry about their guy that they're drinking with on Thursday night. So,
totally. Well, when I got traded to LA, it was Bobby Carpenter and myself for Marcel Dion too. I mean, probably maybe before Wayne Gretzky, maybe the best player that ever played for the Kings. And I didn't really ever get the sense that it really bothered the guys. The young guys like Jimmy Carson and Luc Robitaille were just coming up, and obviously that needs more opportunities for them offense. I felt like, everybody just moved forward with it. But I do agree with you. Ray Bourque, those kind of guys, you do run the risk that you move him out and people really admire him. The young guys are coming up and go, wow, this guy's he's my idol. I really get a lot from him. He's teaching me the game. Drop things up. Yep.
Yeah, but there is so much out there now because there's so many available players and, real high impact players. Giroux, you're adding a guy that's going to move into your top six and has, put up a lot of points in his NHL career.
Pretty competitive guy too, right? He's going to want to go someplace where he's got a chance to win. So you've got that hungry guy in your lineup. So where do you think he's going to go then?
Well, I don't know. I mean, to me, like why does Colorado need Giroux? I mean, they got plenty of offense.
They need a goaltender, right?
Well, that's what I think. But, I think they're the team that should be all over Marc-Andre Fleury. Leave no stone unturned.
Right.
If you think you're going all the way, you got to even look down the road and think, well, I might have to face Vasilevsky or I might have to face the Shesterkin. Is Darcy Kemper, can he do that?
Yeah, I know.
As good as those goalies are in the East, I don't think Marc-Andre Fleury will be intimidated about,
Absolutely. I agree. Totally. I agree. And how about in Vegas where now Eichel is getting ready to play, so they're going to have cap issues, but all of a sudden now Mark Stone is out of the lineup, and I think he's getting surgery if I'm not mistaken.
Here's the thing about that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So, they're in a pickle in terms of this salary cap situation. They essentially have Alec Martinez, and you probably know more about this than I do. But the way the long-term injury works is, you can go over the cap up to the $10 million of players you have on the long term. So, like the cap would say it's 81 million, and you need Eichel to bring him in. You need to go up to 91 million. Well, if you have $10 million worth of people on long-term IR, then you're covered. You can do that. So they've got Martinez still on long-term IR. Now he's getting close to being back himself, so that's another issue. But for now, he's 5.25. And now they need to clear up whatever the rest is, 4.75 to get Eichel into the lineup. And so everybody's saying, well, they're going to have to trade Riley Smith or they're going to Dadonov or, some people have mentioned a variety of different players, maybe 3 players trying to get it in. But if Mark Stone has his surgery. Now, this has bugged him all year.
Right. So all of a sudden now he's getting the surgery. So
they announced that, they thought it might be better if he took a game off. And then all of a sudden now they're saying, well, he could be out longer.
Yeah.
But he'll be back by the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now, what does that remind you of?
So that's pretty good. And that doesn't surprise me one bit. I mean, Kucherov did it with Tampa. Was it last year he did that, right? He missed the whole season.
Right.
And a lot of people didn't like it. Missed the whole season, didn't play at all.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he plays in the playoffs. So they get that cap relief. They
Yeah.
keep the whole lineup together, and then he comes and plays. It's
Now
like-
they get now. So Stone will be back the day after the regular season ends.
Yeah.
And they can get Jack Eichel. Martinez will come aboard, and they'll figure something out for him as well, I'm sure.
So they don't have to trade. They trade somebody, or maybe a couple of more fringe players, right? To get
Yeah, and then they could deal with it. They don't really have anyone to move. I looked at that hard though. I mean, like if they don't trade Riley Smith or Dadnoff, like people say, well, they can move Janmark. He's $2 million.
Right.
Like he's not 4.3. So you got to move him. You got to move Carrier out or somebody else, and they don't have a lot of $2 million players. They're all like big time players, or they're 800,000.
Yeah.
Taking out an $800,000 player doesn't help. You're still going to replace him with an $800,000 player,
right? And then again, you do what you have to do for this year to keep that group together. But then moving forward, they got the problem all over again, right? So now,
well, they do, but Riley Smith's an unrestricted free agent, and people think they're not going to re-sign him anyway because they can't.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but it really is interesting if Stone is out and then comes back, and the idea for them would be, of course, is we just make the playoffs and then let the chips fall where they may. And I don't know what the big deal is about. It's not like the old days where seeding is all that important. Like you're in the East, you got to tell yourself, if we're going to win the cup, we're going to have to be either Tampa Bay or Florida.
Yep.
What does it matter when you play them?
Yeah, I agree totally. Yeah. No,
I mean, you got to beat them. If you can't beat them, then
yeah, like winning the President's Trophy now is the best team in the regular season. Really doesn't. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal right now. It used to mean something, just not necessarily really anything moving forward, but just like an honor to really win that. I don't think that's as big a deal anymore. I think people are saying, no, we want to get ready to win in the playoffs. So.
Yeah. Well, the one good thing too that I wanted to bring up too, everybody was predicting that after the break we were going to have tons of players on COVID, but I think the NHL and the whole country really, it all of a sudden now this big wave has gotten over, and we've had fewer than players on COVID than people thought.
Yeah.
Totally. I know the Red Wings were expecting that they would have, 3 or 4, and they've ended up with Hronek, one player. So I think everyone's pretty happy about that. The wave dissipated at the right time, and maybe they can get going and get these games played and not have to extend the season.
So just to clarify the Kucherov thing here, he really was hurt. He got surgery at the start of last year, so it wasn't some fake injury. Now, did they prolong it through the entire season? Maybe, but he really was hurt. It was a hip injury or something he had surgery on? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, no one's suggesting that Mark Stone isn't hurt or Kucherov isn't hurt. What I'm saying with the Stone's been playing with this injury.
Right. Yeah.
That's all. He's played with it.
And probably could have continued to play with it, right? I mean, if he
yeah, but it's bothered him all year. I mean, this has just been a nagging thing, and but I think they just decided, well, it just makes more sense for him to get it fixed, and then he'll be, he'll feel better during the playoffs. But this also helps us out.
What do you think of Marchand appealing? He's lucky he only got 6 games. I hate to disagree with Susan. I really do. What he did was, he was even quoted as saying this. It was stupid. He acknowledged it was stupid. It's just I didn't think it was that vicious a play.
Yeah, but with his history.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, you're poking the bear. Like what's he thinking?
Yeah.
Totally. I don't know. Did he get 6 games for the actor, or did he get 6 games because he's just ridiculous?
Well, yeah. I mean, if I'm George Peros and I'm making the decision, I'm factoring in his past. There's no question. It's like you got a history.
Well,
of this. Gotta stop.
Yeah, and it's just a dumb act.
Yeah.
And and he just continues to draw attention to himself. And I actually got this one right. I said 5 or 6 games, and he got 6. So
yeah. Did he make some comments? I thought online on social media, so maybe it wasn't accurate, that he made some comments about George, like saying some negative stuff about him.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Maybe it's just somebody wrote on Facebook or Instagram, but I thought I saw some.
Yeah, I mean, he's had some funny comments this season. He's pretty glib on social media. He's had some, when we talked about before when he, said that, Carolina is responsible because of their poor attendance for, the escrow. And, he made a comment when about the 5,000 seat Arizona State arena.
What did he say about that?
Well, he basically said, that they won't even be able to fill that up, essentially, so.
Hey,
anyway.
I thought that was fantastic by Jim Rutherford out there, naming Cami Granado as assistant GM, Vancouver.
Oh yeah. Well, they two female assistant general managers now. That Castagay, who represents Lafreniere, or who did, not anymore, but she was his agent. And I've interviewed her, real sharp.
Nice.
And Cami Granado, putting in the time, and she's been scouting for a half season, like she even said, like, I know all the Vancouver Canucks because she comes to all the games because she's scouting all the teams that come in Vancouver. So, to prevent, travel. So, it's a real good deal for her. So, and this is great. I mean, she lives there. So this, she doesn't have to uproot her family. And
obviously Tony Granado's sister and Ray Ferraro's wife, correct? Ray Ferraro's wife. Yeah,
and don't forget Donnie Granado's sister as well. I mean, Donnie's the one who's in the NHL right now. Tony's at Wisconsin. So, and Donnie, in my opinion, is doing such a great job. And when I saw yesterday that Jeff Skinner got 4 goals, I thought, Donnie Granado. You think so? Donnie Granado, the environment there is so much better. And I'm sure Skinner, and just from knowing Don Granado as I do, I'm sure Skinner feels better about himself playing for a Don Granado team. He's a very positive coach. He gets a lot out of his players.
Okay, I'd like to argue with you on this one.
Yeah.
I think it's more Skinner. Listen, you could be totally correct because I don't know Donnie Granado, don't know how he coaches, but I look at Skinner when he had his contract year coming up. His contract was coming to an end. Scored 40 some goals. Had a great season. Signed the big contract. Then he came back and he didn't do anything. And that was when he had the big year before the contract year. Donnie Granado wasn't around. The team was still a mess, right? I just think it's more of, and again, Granado may play a role in it. I just think it's more Skinner's finally woken up and says, I need to start playing hockey again. I just don't think he was doing anything. That's my take on it.
Well, certainly you got to give the player credit. He's the guy doing it.
Right. Or more give him blame for what he didn't do a couple of years previously, right? He's just.
But I would argue that Kruger was not the right coach, for Skinner. So, and and then what happened with him, and like Kruger just felt that when he started to go bad, when he moved him down to the 4th line, and all that kind of stuff. And I think Don Granado, it's your job. I know Scotty Bowman once said to me, if you have a 30-goal scorer and he doesn't score 30 goals, that's on you as a coach. Because he has it in him. You got to pull it out of him.
Yeah, I guess so.
So.
But do you think I'm going to use look at Sidney Crosby. Do you think the coach makes him the player? I mean, obviously you're not saying that. I mean, he's a great player, but
no, and I don't think it matters who Crosby's coach is.
Okay, but you think he's a unique guy? Wayne Gretzky's a unique guy, right? I mean, okay.
Yeah, but I think for a lot of players it does matter. And you need opportunities. You need to be with the right players. You got to sort it all out. I'll give you.
I am going to agree with you. I'm thinking about more in my career as well. Herb came in at a fantastic time for me. Freddie Shero was great for me. Then Craig took over from Freddie Shero. Those coaches all believed in me and played me. Late in my career, I got traded out to Los Angeles, and Tom Webster, who we've lost, came out to coach there. He coached me. He didn't like me. He didn't think I was as good a player as the other coaches did, and really, it did affect my game.
Tommy Webster did not like Bernie Nichols either. And,
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Bernie had trouble with the
Yeah.
only coach he ever had that he felt like he did. Like Daryl Sutter liked Bernie Nichols, but
Yeah.
Tom Webster did. So,
Yeah.
like Daryl Sutter just played the heck out of. He played the heck out of him even in Chicago when Bernie used to show up, drinking strawberry shakes at 10 o'clock in the morning, and would do the calisthenics and the pre-skate yoga without taking off street clothes,
Yeah.
And Daryl still liked him, still played him. So
that's true. And Susan's right on this one. I've always liked Kreider, but it was very easy to acknowledge that he didn't always show up to play as well as he should. And Gallant has got him going now, like every game pretty much.
Yeah.
On him.
Well, there's a lot of decisions that, you never give any thought. And I'll use the Red Wings as an example since they're in the town that I live. But, Tyler Bertuzzi is having an exceptional season, and Dylan Larkin is having an exceptional season. They're both the best seasons of their career. They've both been unbelievably how well they've played. And, they've had, I think, and these numbers aren't right, but they're relatively close. Like, Larkin has had 27 points in his last 20 games, and Tyler Bertuzzi is over a point per game. But, about a week, 10 days ago, Jeff Blashill wasn't getting anything out of his second line. They had to make the difficult decision of he took Tyler Bertuzzi, who played great with Larkin, and put him on the second line. Since then, both lines are playing well. And after the last game, he was asked about that decision, and he said, look, my biggest concern when I did that was I going to wreck that first line, because they were playing so well together. And he says it's turned out, both of those guys can carry it by themselves, and Bertuzzi has really helped the second line. All of a sudden, Pius Suter and Robbie Fabre, and Fabre is a real tenacious player. He works hard, but with Bertuzzi on his line, now there's two of them, and both those lines are going now. And Larkin hasn't missed a beat. Larkin had 3 assists the other game. So
yeah, he's good. Who's the big defenseman you like there so much in Detroit?
Seider. Yeah.
Seider. I watched a clip of him the other day. He had a shift where he hammers some people.
Yeah,
and he's a good skater too, right? He's good.
Yeah, the why I love him and I brought this up before. He's got a pile of points. And he doesn't go out of his way to get points. When you're young, sometimes you got to take chances to get points, and you want to prove yourself. He doesn't take chances. He just plays his position, and he still piles up the points. He makes great passes. He's now the number one defenseman on the power play. He's the number one defenseman out playing against the top players. Whenever you see the Red Wings, which you do often, get caught on a 2-on-1 break, he's always the one. He's not the guy that's got caught, but he's back there. He's killing penalties. He's number one in minutes played. He's 20 years old. He's 20 years old, and you look at his points. I mean, he is a really, really strong defenseman, and he hits, he blocks shots. Man,
there's look around the league. There's a lot of good young defensemen coming along now.
For sure. And he's big. Yeah. Like Mort Seider is big, and he skates. And then I tell the story, like, you don't realize how gifted he is offensively until you see him in 3-on-3. They throw him and Lucas Raymond, the other rookie, who's 19 and a 20-year-old. They throw out with Dylan Larkin to start the overtime. And those guys usually own the puck for a minute and 45, minute and 50. Yeah, they get a lot of shots on goal, and then everybody makes the sign of the cross when they bring out the second Red Wing group, because it won't be as good as those three.
So, did the Red Wings have a chance of making the playoffs?
I don't think so. The Bruins, like the Red Wings are improved, but the Bruins are still the Bruins. Yeah. Bergeron is still good, and Marchand, say what you want about him, but he's a terrific hockey player.
No,
yeah. And they're going to make a move here. They've poked around at Chychrun. They're one of the few teams that I think could acquire Chychrun and not hurt themselves.
Right.
Like, they could give up. I think there's been discussion that maybe it would be DeBrusk, first round pick, a second round pick, and they wanted Swayman. I don't think they'll give Swayman up now that too
Yeah, I
direct.
talked to a scout the other day there that wasn't as high on Chikrin as I am, that you and I seem to be. He didn't think he was that good. He seems like he's more. He said he had a good year, had an off year, and now this year hasn't been that great of a year. That's what this scout was telling me about.
You talking about Chikrin?
Chikrin, yes, sorry, yes,
Yeah, yeah. I think you have to put Chikrin into context. Chikrin's making $4.6 million, and he's tied up 3 more years, and he's 23 years old.
Yeah,
that's why he's really, really enticing. You're paying top defensemen in this league $9 million.
I know.
Chikrin has in Arizona plays against the best players. He's used to playing a lot of minutes. He lives in the weight room. He's just a physical specimen. And so there's a lot of is he flawed? For sure. Yeah. But, he's $4.6 million. You've got to tie it up.
His father and I keep in touch on Facebook a little bit. I think it is now. We didn't play with each other, play against each other, but he was a game guy. He would fight anybody.
Yeah. No, I'm bullish on the Chikrin deal too, because I think there's some upside there. I think he's really that's a real team friendly contract given what he can do. He did have 18 goals last year on a team that really wasn't all that offensive. So he has them in him, and he's playing for just a horrible team this year. So who knows what that means? So yeah, you look at around the league, the teams that are really interested in him. Florida Panthers, Detroit Red Wings have made a bid for him. Yzerman, it's just the kind of defenseman that Yzerman's been looking for. There's been several teams. They're all the top teams in the league, because they see the value in, and again, as an overall player, yeah, maybe he is flawed. But when you look at all the pieces to him, he's very attractive.
So I wonder if the Rangers would be involved in that. You think of all the cap space they've got and the good young players. They've probably got more that they can give to anybody else, right?
Yeah, they would. Although some of their players, like those players that the Bruins I mentioned, DeBrusk wants out. I'm sure the Rangers they could give up the Russian forward that isn't playing for him now. He was a first round pick, so that would work. They could certainly give up their first round pick next season. But they're not gonna. I've seen people suggest that Montreal wants Lafreniere. They're not getting Lafreniere from the Rangers.
Maybe if it's the right trade, maybe Capo Caco, but
for sure, yeah. I would agree with that because he looks to me to be a player that may not make it.
He could probably still play, but it may not be what everybody anticipated he was going to.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he can't play in the league. What I'm saying is that he may not be the top scorer that they had hoped he was going to be. So I think they would move him, but you're not going to move the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, not yet.
So.
Not yet. Maybe down the road, but not yet. I think he looks like Gallant still has faith in him. Gallant's really interesting in his press conference. I love watching him. He's very, he answers all the questions, but I don't know if he gives out too much information, but he answers all the questions. They talk about Lafreniere a lot. And he talks very good about him. He's very happy with him, but he's a 3rd line guy right now, or whatever, he's a 4th line guy. So
yeah. Well, as a reporter, I always love the guys too, that they're not bothered by anything. I knew Mark Stahl a little bit from, covering him through the years of the Rangers. I know most of the Stahls. I've interviewed them, especially Jordan. I've covered a lot of Penguins games because they've been good. So I knew Jordan when he was with Pittsburgh, and, Eric I've interviewed times, and Mark. But since Mark's come to Detroit, I really have grown to appreciate what an honest player he is. And he's totally unflappable. The Red Wings, Yzerman, by the way, loves him.
Good.
Because he competes every shift.
Yeah. Right.
Every shift he's out there just fighting and battling and pushing people out. His teammates absolutely love him. But Dylan Larkin has to come out and face the music, usually about a poor performance by the Red Wings. And, that gets old after a while. Mark Messier is the only captain who always would handle it no matter how bad it was. Sure. And so whenever Larkin needs a break, they send out Stahl. And I don't care what you ask Stahl. You could say, that was the worst performance I've ever seen, by a Red Wings team. He'll answer the question, and just not be bothered in the least by it.
Yeah.
Just say, well, we could have been better, and then he'll talk about, where they could have, played better and everything. But, he's totally unflappable. And, the media really, they almost kind of chuckle about it, about how good he is at just deflecting and being positive and making it feel like he's giving you something when really he's not giving you much.
Yeah.
But he's answering the question. He's willing to talk about, he'll say, well, we didn't start on time, or that's on us, and we've got to make sure that we have a better first period. And if you look at our record this year, we're not scoring a lot of goals in the second period, so it's really important that we get that good start. He's just really turns it around, and I really sort of admire the way he does it. And now he's got that Civil War reenactor beard, and
does he have that going?
Oh yeah, it's real thick and bushy, and he just looks like. And but I will say, I talked to someone recently, and not much information comes out of the Red Wings, so I don't know if this I can trust it. But he's fairly confident the Red Wings are going to offer him yet another contract, just because everybody loves him. And they they think he works hard.
Yeah, and that's important too, right? I think that Yzerman would do that, because I think that's what they missed in Edmonton there with those great young players. They didn't have enough older character guys in that team. That's part of it.
Well, they appreciate the and most of the young defensemen will say, that Stahl is, just assaulted the earth in terms of, I know Moritz Seider likes Stahl quite a bit. And the young guys just like having him around, and he's better offensively than I think a lot of people realize. He'll step up, and next thing you know, he's in the slot letting the shot go, and
that's a great way to end your career like that. Be that character guy at the end that people like. I think that means a lot.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, he's the fans have turned on some veteran defensemen. They're hard in Detroit on Dick Heiser, who is kind of slowed down, and he had a bad hip injury and has never really recovered his mobility. And Nick Leddy has had kind of a rough season as well. And Mark Stahl's not the fastest guy in the world anymore, but they appreciate him. It's because he's there battling every shift. So
all right, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, we do. But appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be back on Wednesday. I'll be back in Michigan. If you want to read me, DetroitHockeyNow.com or HockeyBuzz.com.
Once again, if you want to listen to the radio version of this show, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports. That's radio.co at 365 Sports. We'll see everybody on Wednesday.